All right, we're going to get started. Baltimore City Council Ways and Means Committee. We're back in session for City Council Ordinance 23-0381, Ordinance of Estimates for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2024. I'm Mayor Costello, Councilman for the 11th District, joined by Councilwoman Felicia Porter, 10th District, also Councilman Ryan Dorsey, 3rd District, member of the committee. To my immediate right is Matt Peters. We're here for the Enoch Pratt Free Library System. CEO, Ms. Daniel, if you would please kick things off, if you would introduce everyone from your senior staff who is here, first, last name, and position title, and then we can jump right into your presentation. Oh, sorry. Got this new technology in here. Push the button on your right, and that'll make your ring light up red. When you're done speaking, please turn that off. This thing picks up like breathing, sniffles, the whole nine. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. Hello, good evening. Thank you for having us. I'm Heidi Daniel, the CEO of the Enoch Pratt Free Library. And with me is members of my senior team. So starting to my immediate right is Victoria Ravy, who is the CFO for the library system, Gordon Krabby, who is the COO, Kenny Clash, who is our Chief of Innovation and Technology, and Darcel Graham, who is our Vice President of Public Services.
Thank you. And do we have a slide?
We do.
Matt, if you could expand that, and we'll jump right into your service level. For the gentleman from the media, that would be you, only person with the camera. If you want to get set up for Baltimore City Public Schools, you can do so right over there by the mirror. Just please try not to interrupt the hearing, but help yourself. That's the media staging area. Thank you, Ms. Daniel.
Great. So right into our agency overview, there's our mission statement, which I believe we fully live out, and then our fiscal 2024 goals, which you will see include completing our full building assessment study to pair with our master facility plan that we created through private funding last year, which will create a detailed roadmap for addressing our infrastructure needs, which we expect to be over $100 million. We also are going to implement our ARPA funding from the city, which we are incredibly grateful to have received, which will allow us to renovate indoor and outdoor computer and Wi-Fi spaces in neighborhoods that were most impacted by the pandemic, and provide new equitable spaces for all ages to work, learn, and create in a new digital age. In addition to that, we'll also be replacing HVAC in many of our buildings. Next slide. So that's just our little box. And so our major budget items are there. As you can see, we've been working very hard. Our main concern for us is staff and staffing. So as part of an agency-wide budget reorganization, over 150 positions have been moved between activities. And we are working to continue to do that as an oversight. Thank you. And a net total of 9 positions were moved into the general fund or other funding sources, which allows us to directly charge eligible departments to the State Library Resource Grant rather than recovering the costs through the annual transfer. It also includes the creation of 12 new positions, including 4 new agency IT associates to help improve help desk functions and eliminate the use of contractual employees for these functions. We had some contractual employees who we'd been using for 12 years, and it seems like it was time for them to become full employees of the city. So we've moved them into those positions as well. And with all of the digital equity initiatives we have and are supporting, we of course needed to ramp that up. So the budget also includes $1 million in unallocated funding for potential grants. So you will see that in the budget. It looks like an additional $1.3 million or $1.4 million increase. 1.2 million of that is actually private funding that we have raised for grant opportunities and for positions for some of our donor-funded programs, including Books for Me program coordinator, coordinators for our Earl Teen Center, and telehealth programs and digital navigators that we've received funding for through BSIT. We have to put those positions, even though they're not city funds, they need to go in the budget so that we can use the positions for the staff members to implement those programs. So you'll see those reflected as well. And then it also assumes an additional $499,000 in savings from staff turnover and vacancies based on current trends. So basically, you will see also that our target metrics, we are finally starting to see our metrics trending back up towards our pre-pandemic levels. We did have a service goal of $2 million for this year. I think I must have put that in after like a heavy dose of optimism because I don't think we reached 2 million before the pandemic. But 1 million should have been the appropriate target for us, and we were very close to that this year, and we'll undoubtedly make that target in the next year and continue that increase as we're seeing people come back in high numbers, as well as our resource use, again, being up over, not quite at our target, almost to our target, but being significantly up over 20 and 21. And 19. So we're seeing our numbers trend back up to pre-pandemic levels. And what we're seeing is new services like our social impact programming becoming more important as we move forward, which we are, have been using private funding to support, and hopefully at some point we'll be able to move into a budget. We continue to have concerns around staff pay equity, which we've talked to the budget office about and are grateful for their assistance and flexibility as we move into our first contract negotiations with the newly formed union. So we want to be mindful of the fact that we also need to be competitive, which we currently aren't, with surrounding systems, and our employees currently face a lot of stressors in the branches. In the last few months, we've had several incidents of threats towards employees or immediate violence outside of the buildings that have caused, stress and lead to the turnover that we have. So wanting to be mindful of the need for competitive salaries and wages and recognition of the fact that the work for the Enoch Pratt Free Library is different than the work you might see in surrounding counties and jurisdictions. Another issue we've addressed with the budget office is our collection, which is funded at significantly lower levels than the surrounding areas, and that we will need to build that out in future years because as people trend towards using ebooks more, downloading audio more, and all of those downloads and those resources, they are actually more expensive than physical items, which we do still circulate, as you can see. So we're just being thoughtful of those expenses growing in the future.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We've been joined by Councilman Robert Stokes, 12th District Vice Chair of the Committee, Councilman Mark Conway, 4th District, Council Vice President Sharon Green Middleton, 6th District Member of the Committee, Councilwoman Odette Ramos, 14th District. Three things I'm going to take a little privilege as Chair to hit on very quickly. One, there was some confusion in the budget book, and I wanted to take this forum to clear that up. There is what appears to be a $2.8 million reduction in state funding. I had an opportunity to talk with Budget Director Larson about this and with you this morning, Ms. Daniel. And just to clarify for the record, and I'm going to repeat my understanding, and then I'd ask both of you to confirm that that is correct. That $2.8 million reduction is not, in fact, a reduction. That $2.8 million is still coming to EPFL directly from the state. I would characterize this as a accounting preference in how it's been handled internally by the Pratt folks. But to just reiterate very simply, the Pratt Library is not seeing a reduction in its budget this year. Is that correct?
Our budget is flat this year, essentially. The general fund budget is flat this year. There's a small net reduction of $8,000, which, again, goes back to vacancies. And obviously, our state per capita went up to $62,719. And then what you're referring to is the $2.8 million that comes directly to the Pratt from the state. And normally what would happen is it would be reflected in our city line, but we weren't spending it through city mechanisms. We spent it through the Pratt mechanism. So rather than have you all ask us, why are you not spending this money? Is it still appearing on the budget line? We move it to the Pratt line, whereas we actually spend it. So yes, it's not a reduction of 2.8 million. It is just a change in how we reflect it in our accounting. So it's not a reduction of 2.8.
Got it. Okay. Did I characterize that accurately?
Yes, definitely helps us true up the accounting for those dollars, especially now that we are in Workday and have sort of greater visibility and transparency around our financials, especially on the grant side. What we're trying to do is really make sure that the grants that are reflected in the city's budget are ones where the dollars are actually flowing through the city's treasury and where we're spending those dollars. So this is one, as Director Daniels mentioned, that none of those actual transactions were flowing through the city, so this is just a cleanup. But again, they will still have access to those funds. They just don't appear in the city budget.
Outstanding. There was, what drove this concern is what I believe, what I believe to be some erroneous information that was posted at some of the library branches, and obviously that caused great concern when information was going around that the Pratt would be facing this type of cut, something that I think we would all find unacceptable. I think we're all very relieved to know that that is, in fact, not the case. I appreciate BBMR's efforts to work with the Pratt in terms of flexibility around positions and pay scale, considering their changing situation. That's the first item. The second item is going to be on behalf of Councilman Conway. I know we had a chance to talk about two libraries that are in need of HVAC repairs. If you could briefly touch on those two and their situations, please.
Yes, absolutely. So, Councilman Conway, as you know, you reached out to the city and asked, and right after you reached out, we learned that we had received some additional ARP funding for HVAC that would assist us with making those repairs. So, in good news, Govins is number 2 on the list after Hamilton. Thank you. Govins is number 2 on the list after Hamilton for those HVAC repairs through ARP funding from GGS. So they will be starting those repairs, hopefully, we have the 2 years to expend the funding, so DGS will be moving that timeline forward. But from the Pratt side, we will absolutely be advocating for that to move forward. In the meantime, we have stabilized Govins through a combination of donated and privately funded support for split units in HVAC, as well as city procured units to assist with ensuring that the buildings can remain cool and stay open in the summer so that we can avoid closures like we had last year. And Northwood, we are currently engaging in a feasibility study. Senator Mary Washington had allocated some funding for Northwood branch, and although we can't use that funding for a feasibility study, we leverage that funding for a private funding for a feasibility study of that branch, because we have concerns that if we would spend, so the cooling system in that building is original to the 1960s, so it's lived well beyond its mechanical lifespan. But when we look at the building overall, we have some concerns that the envelope is also in need of some serious repairs. It doesn't have great ADA either. And so our goal would be to reimagine that library altogether. So we currently have just brought on, literally like a day ago, a firm to help us with a feasibility study for that branch, as well as looking at what other locations it could potentially be in if we don't remain in that site, if it could be part of a joint project with another agency like Parks and Rec, if it could be, if there's any appetite there for development on the site. So we've been working on that branch as well.
And could you make your facilities chief available to Councilman Conway should he have additional follow-up questions?
100%, absolutely. His name is Clarence Felder. I'm happy to connect him. You know how to find me, and I will connect you to him. But we also kept Northwood on the list as number 7, so that for HVAC from ARP, so that if it's determined that it would take a significant amount of time for us to get a new Northwood branch, we could potentially repair the HVAC if needed so that the branch doesn't close. But we also have that branch stabilized, and it's doing very well with its cooling units that we have temporarily put in. They're split units and, temp systems.
Music to my ears. Thank you so much.
Of
I
course.
appreciate the update and look forward to following up as this moves forward. Do we know the timeline for Govins, or is that still?
So we don't have a timeline that we can share with you that's definitive. We'll definitely share it with you as we get closer. We're working closely with DGS to create those timelines, and as soon as we have it, we'll share it with you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Before we continue, Melissa, are we expecting a large contingent from city schools? Can you bring everyone from city schools out in the hallway? You guys will have chairs, and love you, Dr. Santelises, but you're very popular. So what's going to happen is all your staff are going to come in here because you're in here. So kind of like a classroom, if you will. Not the best analogy, but I really do appreciate it. I just want to make sure we get through this hearing efficiently so we can start your hearing. Okay, and
Mr. Chair.
I'm coming right to you, and then Councilman Stokes. Just one last thing on this for Conway. After this hearing, immediately after, Councilman, can you step out with Ms. Daniel and get contact information for the facilities chief so you can go directly to that person to get any updates? Councilman, I assume you have a question on Hamilton.
It's not on Hamilton, actually. Northwood is actually in my district.
Yes.
And I want to add context for everybody here. I have 2 bills in presently for rezoning of properties in that immediate area, one of which is the Northwood Library site. Without going into too much detail, we are having conversations, as was said, about the idea of a co-located rec and community center library at one or either of these 2 sites potentially. And these zoning bills are intended to raise the specter of possibility for these sites for land disposition and potential mixed-use development. So I would urge everybody here to keep that in mind. We are in clear discussion about that.
Yes, thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, and if you could step out after the hearing with Councilman Conway, just so you both have the contact info for the facilities chief in case you have any questions. Thank you. I'm going to hold my third item to the end. Vice Chair Stokes.
How you doing?
Hi, Councilman Stokes.
I know we were talking about, y'all talking about libraries, but the library on Wolf and Washington Street, Wolf Street off of North Avenue has some health issues, some mold. So we have 2 schools just opened up, Hartford Heights and Sharp Leadenhall. Where is that at in terms of funding? Because we have 2 21st century schools just opened up, and we don't have a library. And I understand why it's not open because of the mold. You don't want people to be sick. So do you have any updated information in terms of funding source? Because we've been talking with South Clifton Park and Dolly Park community about our next steps in terms of moving that space to another space, hopefully a library on East North Avenue.
Yeah, so Gordon, you might have some updates for us, but right now, from my understanding, for funding for Clifton, we have $1.3 million that we've been holding for an appropriate site once we identify a site, because it wouldn't make a dent in what we need to do in the existing building. So we're exploring what partnerships, as you know, that are there, and I think we have the contact information for the schools, and we'll be following up with them accordingly as well. And we did put money in the CIP request this year for Clifton, I believe, but did not get it. Yes, we did not get the CIP for Clifton this year, but we'll continue to put that in next year. And as we have better numbers, I would expect that to.
Can you send me that information? 1, 2 is, what is the cost of, do you have a budget of what's it going to cost to do that?
So we don't have a cost until we have a site identified, and then we would have to do a quick study to estimate a cost so that we would know what we would be spending. Yeah,
Okay.
And our hope would be to work with another city agency partner so that we can mitigate costs.
Okay, well, we just catch up with you with Broadway East and South Clifton Park.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Of course.
Colleagues, any other questions for Pratt Library? Council Vice President Middleton.
Hi. Mostly a statement, and I just can't say enough how we are just so lucky to have Heidi Daniels and her team for the things that you do and continue to highlight the wonderful efforts that the Pratt Library continues to do for this city. And just so appreciative. And it took, you know, just an example in my district, it took years to really get to the point of the 2 libraries that are being taken care of in my district. One, of course, in Park Heights that hasn't had a library in more than 20-some years at all. A very large community, as you know, so we're excited about that. And, of course, the historical renovation of the Forest Park Library. And I'm saying all this because they do reach out to the community. They involve the community in plans. So I have faith that all the libraries that are in line to also be renovated, that they're definitely going to work with you. I just want to add that I have been just recently getting information that some of the people for the Forest Park Library just really finding out, because I have said, look, there were 1 or 2 meetings and the community is going to be involved and plan this. So
Right.
I'll help with that outreach. I think the Liberty School and I think the people that are running the rec center next to the school are just interested in being a part of the plans when you
Great.
have your next meeting.
Great.
But-
We'll definitely, thank you. We'll make sure that happens. And I think we have identified swing space as well with the senior center, so.
Okay, because I think they want to make sure that there is kind of a community room that's going, and I told them, I remember that in conversation, so looking forward to that big renovation as well. So just to the council, they're going to do a great job in working with the community, and just glad that all of the libraries around the city are really getting attention and knowing the importance of a library and how it's not like what the old libraries used to be.
Right.
It's really going to be a part of the community. So thank you, Heidi, for your dedication, your experience, and just you coming here and just falling in love with Baltimore as well. So appreciate everything that you and your team do together and the partnerships that you create. And the outreach of funding is just so important, that they are very good. They're very good with how they get the funding. They have a very strong board that helps with the funding. So we are a lucky city to have an organization like Pratt. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Middleton. We're incredibly, I mean, we only exist to serve the city. Without the city of Baltimore, there's no reason for Pratt, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, thanks for being here. And of course, for all you do. I obviously am in love with the Waverly Library. I think it's amazing. And of course, all the staff are amazing as well. I just I'm a member of the Trauma Informed Task Force. And so I just want to thank you all for just really the tremendous work that you've done to train the librarians on trauma-informed care, and also the advocacy for the peer navigators. I mean, it's pretty amazing, right? I mean, you basically said, you know, wait, the libraries can be more than just about books and computers. Right. It's about, like, the library is probably one of the most trusted institutions in our entire city, right? People come to the library for all different reasons, and now you're thinking about all the different ways that you can be helpful. So the task force is asking for an additional $1 million to be able to have peer navigators, and that would extend to all of your libraries. Is that correct?
That would be 15 libraries.
Right, and how many do you have right now?
21.
I mean, how many peer navigators do you have?
Oh,
We have one on staff right now.
right.
Apologies for, so we rely on volunteers and training peer navigators through a temporary grant program.
Right.
So sustainability for the future is something that is still being workshopped.
And Darcel, can you share with us how many currently or where our interns are currently placed?
Is that on? Yes, sure. We have actually one on staff, one in the process of operationalized, so we'll have two next month. We are currently at our Cherry Hill branch, Walbrook, Brooklyn, Southeast, Central, Emerson. So we have about 15 interns in addition to the two on staff. Right.
So this allocation would be to make those not just interns but staff, but then also to grow the program to more libraries.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm grateful for all your work, and I hope that we can make this happen for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Colleagues, any other questions for Pratt? Duly noted for the record. The third and final thing I wanted to say, while I'm incredibly disappointed that you've done the following, I'm very excited for you that you've hired Kenny Clash. Very disappointed to see him leave the Digital Harbor Tech Center, but you're in very good hands.
Yes,
Thank you for all the great work you all do every single day.
It was a lot of recruitment efforts on my part, so.
I'm certain. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Appreciate all your effort. We're now in recess until 6:30 or later for Baltimore City Public School System. Thank you.